This is Bob with County Records Research. We're getting ready to begin our webinar presentation for Friday, and that's Friday, March 4th, 2016. So welcome to the County Records Research Friday webinar. And we're going to be looking at some properties today, and every webinar is a little different, so we're going to take a look and see what we can see in just a few moments. And it's about 29 after 2. We always start our webinars at 2:30 here Wednesdays. We talk about how the website works. Speaking of which, you should be able to see my screen right now. And this is my welcome screen. Whenever I log into my account, I can see the counties that I have selected when I set up my service, and this is the welcome screen. So you can see the counties themselves up here on the top, and then there's the property search option. It's a button here on the right. You notice I put my cursor over it and it becomes a little hand indicating that that's a button. Also, you'll notice for navigation purposes, I'm using Google Chrome today for the presentation. You can identify the Chrome look because up on top I've got the tab up here that's open that says County Records Research, and down below I've got my this is my navigation toolbar from the website. But Google, you can always tell from the format of these tabs up on top. You'll notice I can have multiple tabs open and then close them out as I go and get back to my main tab. And there I am. Now, whenever we log on to the website, we're always going to see this image of the screen. So here are my counties and property search, and then my navigation toolbar on the left. If you haven't seen our Wednesday webinar that explains how to use the navigation bar, please do. That'll help you get acclimated to the site. So we're going to take a look at some properties today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit property search. Now notice I hit it on this lower right side in this format. I could have also hit it over here on the left side. So whenever we've navigated into different screens, we can always get back to property search by selecting property search here on the left-hand side. If you've attended our Wednesday webinars, you also know you can go to My Searches to look at your previously recorded searches, and you can go to My Properties to see that information. Notice whenever I have that page open, I also have additional toolbar options on the left, as well as my tabs on top to look at other information such as my email notifications. But I can always get back to my property search screen by selecting property search, and here I am. So we're going to take a look at some properties today and see what we can see. Now, whenever I'm looking in a target area, I want to give myself some choices of what I want to find. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and pick LA County South today. LA County South, if you're not familiar with what's in a particular county, you can always put your cursor over the county, and then you get a box that tells you all the different cities. Now, just as a case in point, there might be a new city that's been incorporated recently. We're not going to have every city on the list, otherwise the list would be pretty darn long. So just remember that we're going to try and give you a good overall bird's eye view of the different cities, and you'll get an idea. Anything south of Los Angeles City proper is going to be in LA County South, hence the term LA County South. If you want Los Angeles, you're going to want LA County West, and here's a list of the cities in there. Includes the San Fernando Valley, West LA, and of course, Los Angeles. Now, any of the other counties, I can do the same. Now, as I scroll down to my search screen, you see my single property search section. If you've attended previous webinars, you know this is one of the favorite parts of the website for me personally, because this is how I can do my secondary research without having to jump on the phone and call title. So single property search allows us to check for a history of a particular property. It also allows us to track down the status of a particular property if, for instance, I've lost track of it. And let's say I knew there was a property on, what's a good street that we can use for LA County South? Let's say that I knew that there was a property on Imperial Highway. Okay, that's a main street in South LA County. So now let's say I remember that there was a property on Imperial Highway, but I can't remember where it's at. Okay, so now I can take and I can just put Imperial in here and hit search. Now what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a list of properties where Imperial Highway is the street name that the property sits upon. Now you notice I didn't make any other designation than Imperial, and so what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a list of addresses on Imperial Highway. Now notice this list from left to right. I've got the address, the city, the state, the zip code, lot size, square footage, estimated minimum bid, senior, junior loans, all the fun stuff that I normally expect to see on a standard search that you've seen on our Wednesday webinar. But also notice on the far right, I have a column for my NTS sale date. That's our notice of trustee sale date. That's the foreclosure auction at the courthouse. And then I also have my added date, which we also call our listed date for benefits of the search. This date reflects the date that you would see in our listed date windows on the website. When you do an NOD search, we search by listed date. Now, for purposes of the demonstration, again, I'm using Google Chrome. Notice that every sale notice also has a listed date. So bear in mind, sometimes you might want to search your notices of sale by listed date. If I want the freshest records in the system, if I want the people that got their first notice of trustee sale on the front door because they might be anxious, they might have just gotten their first glimpse of what it's like to actually have your property set to go to a foreclosure auction, these people might be my target clientele. If I'm going to go offer to help them try and get a modification, or if I'm going to go offer to help them sell the property as an agent, or if I'm going to make an offer for myself or on behalf of a third party, then I would like to find somebody that's anxious and willing to sell their home. So that can be an exciting opportunity to search sale notices by listed date, the same way we search notices of default. But getting back to the report, notice that we have the first property on the list is a property in Norwalk, and they have a sale date of April 14th of 2016. Notice that the date it was added to our system was February 10th, a month ago, 2016. Now, also notice that I have this list below of all these other properties, and notice that the dates on the added date column are descending into the past, because this is how this is sorted for us when we find this report. Now, I can resort this report. I can sort it by lot size, by zip code, by city, if I wanted to. But I like this format right now because this tells me the freshest notice of sale is right up here on the top. Now, this one in Norwalk has a unit number, so I'm going to say that that's probably a condo. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. It's probably a townhome, actually, because notice it has a lot size. Whenever we have a condo, it's probably going to have either a really large lot size, or it's going to have a 0 indicating that there's no lot whatsoever. If it's a condo, they don't own the land mainly. They're sharing the land with other parties. Now, in this particular case, I'm going to guess this is a townhome, and it's a 1,444 square foot townhome on a lot size of 1585. So I'm guessing what we got here is a multi-story, probably a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, and they probably have very little yard space. Okay, so that gives me a good picture here. Now notice something. There's a sale date in April. So this has been postponed, I would think, because a February added date would normally mean a March sale date. So I'm going to guess this has been postponed at least once. Okay, now also notice that we've got all these sale date properties. These are all sale notices because they have a sale date. If I scroll further down my report, I get down to this section and notice the sale dates disappear, and I get just listed dates and nothing in the sale date column. This is a notice of default list. You'll notice that in a single property search, both categories are designated. As a matter of fact, nothing is pulled out of this report. So this report's going to include REO properties. It's going to include properties that sold to third-party bidders, because the only defining characteristic of this search was the street name, Imperial Highway. Okay, and notice I didn't type in highway, I didn't have to. There's also an Imperial Avenue here in El Segundo. So what do you know? So anytime you do a search in the single property search, you can pick the street name, or let's look at something different. What if I knew the property had an address of 1313? There's a TV show where the property was on 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Let's say I remember that the street number is 1313, but I can't remember what street it's on. Well, rather than just feel stumped like there's nothing else I can do, I can put in 1313 and hit search. And up comes all these properties in my LA South zone that have an address of 1313. Now, I've done this search before because, again, this is kind of an odd address. Notice that none of these are recent. I've got added dates from 2014. So that means that there hasn't been a recent property with 1313, which is funny because that tells me that 1313 might be a lucky number for someone to have, because this is a pretty short list, isn't it? If you think that you've got 8 years worth of records for South LA County, and there's a short list here, so 1313 turns out to be a lucky number. How do you like that? Okay, so this is my single property search option if I'm looking for something that I know of in a particular area. For instance, I was helping somebody earlier today, and we were looking at a property on Maddock in Downey. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in Maddock because this, again, let's say that this gentleman calls me up and says, remember we were talking about that property, and I can't remember the number of this, but I remember it was on Maddock. So notice that this is a function that you can take advantage of when you have somebody contact you. Let's say that I've been sending out letters, or I've been going by and doing door knocking, but of course, a lot of times people don't answer their door, do they? So I've been leaving personal notes and an offer. I'd love to buy your house. Here's my offer. And please give me a call back and let me know if you've had a chance to look at my offer, because I'm serious. I've got the cash money and I want to buy your home. You know, everybody has their own method, don't they? Some people like to send out letters and say, you know, I can stop the foreclosure. Or some people like to go knock at the door and mention that. Other people like to approach the homeowner and act as if they don't know the property's in default. That's my preference. I like to just say, you know what, I'm in the area, I'm an investor, and I'm buying properties. Are you the homeowner? And act as if I've never seen these people on a list. Okay, we all have our own method. Okay, if people think that you know they're on a list, then they might be on guard. If they think you're just simply walking down a block making offers, they might think you're kind of kooky, but they might be open to a conversation. So remember, the main key is that we want to have as many conversations as we can have and make as many offers as we can make. The difference between success and failure is by the numbers. Okay, and we will always emphasize to you, you need to use the report to see the properties. You need to see the properties to make an offer. So get out there and make your offers. That's the key. So let's say I want to look up this property on Maddock, but I don't remember the street number, but I do remember the street name. I can just type in Maddock and hit search. Now, notice this is a much longer list than when I went with 1313, isn't it? Because 1313 is a specific address number. And what I got here is I got Maddock Avenue, a lot of avenues. Let's see if there's any others. Well, there just seems to be Maddock Avenue. Sometimes you only have avenues, no roads, no places, no courts, just avenues. So now Maddock, this is the property I was just looking at earlier, this is not the same one I was looking at earlier. So there I was mistaken. The one I was looking at earlier was a notice of default. So again, If I remember that it was a notice of default, I know that these are sale dates. Okay, these are sale dates, so these are notices of sale. So I go down my list, and there's the one I was looking at. This is the property on Maddock Avenue. Okay, so this is my house on Maddock Avenue. Now notice something here. Here's Maddock 9915. This is the address I was thinking of. Now, why did this come to my attention? Because somebody called us because we're processing a foreclosure on this property. And notice that there are two records in our system that were recorded within a month of each other. One on January 26th and one on February 16th, just a very short distance of time, about 20 days apart. Now, the notice of default for the second loan on the property was recorded, or actually was recorded and then hit our system on January 26th. So that's the record I know that our record is. So now notice up above is the first loan foreclosing on February 16th. Now, conveniently, I know there's two notices on this property. I also know there's two loans because they're both foreclosing. Now notice, when the second forecloses, we have a column here that's our senior junior loan column. Now let me scroll up to the top so you see what I mean. Senior junior loans. And notice the slash, it's there for a reason. Because the senior loans are ahead of the slash, the junior loans are to the right. Now I'm going to scroll back down. And notice the first is foreclosing. There will be no senior loan. The first is the senior loan. There won't be anything ahead of it. Therefore, the senior loan is $0 because there's nothing there. However, there's a second behind it of $200,000. So we know the first is foreclosing and there's a second of $200,000. Now notice the second record on the same property. In this case, the second is foreclosing and the first is shown ahead of the slash as $506,400. So the first is $506,400. The second is $200,000. They have both started foreclosures within a month of each other. Okay, so is it possible for two loans to be foreclosing on the same property at the very same time? Yes. Okay, now how is this going to pan out? That's the question, because notice that the previous foreclosure started in January with the second loan, and then the first started their foreclosure. So if this follows the normal course of events, that means the second could hold their auction and then the first could hold their auction if both foreclosures continued concurrently. And that can happen. You can have two loans on the same property foreclosing simultaneously. Would that affect my strategy? You bet. You bet. And let me show you why, because I was just looking at this property before, and we're just going to take a look at the foreclosing first. Now this one has a few idiosyncrasies to it, I have to tell you, because you'll look at this and you're going to wonder what's going on, because these people bought this property in March of 2015. They bought it less than a year ago. Okay, so they bought it less than a year ago, and they're in foreclosure on both loans. Okay, if that doesn't make you scratch your head and say, what the heck, nothing will. Okay, so here's what we have. We have a foreclosing first of $506,000 from less than a year ago. What can I say about that? First of all, this loan has not gone down at all. Okay, and I know that they're delinquent because the notice of default was just issued on February 9th for $38,000, and every month it's going to go up because they're missing their payments. They're not making their payments on this property. So it would appear that they probably got this property rented out, and the reason I'm saying that is look up above and you see a mailing address on the property that's different than the address of the house. The address is on Maddock Avenue in Downey, 9915. It's a beautiful house, by the way. Let me show you. Now, notice I'm using the map on the profile. Now, I put my cursor in the map and I'm using the wheel on my mouse because I have a desktop. If I'm on a tablet or a phone, I can be using my little magnifying glass options up here. to go in and out, but I'm going to use my wheel. It's more convenient for me and it gets in tight, and I can hit bird's eye and look at this place. Look at this place. Holy moly. You could house an army in this place. Look at this place. It's huge. Now, 3,341 square feet on a 10,147 square foot lot with a pool. Okay, that pool looks a little green in that image, but there it looks okay. Okay, but in that picture it doesn't look as clean as these two pools, so maybe these folks aren't taking care of it. It's hard to say what's going on here, or maybe these are old shots. This property was in foreclosure before, by the way. And one of the things that I found as I was researching it is that the last family lost it to foreclosure. These folks bought it out of foreclosure and then turned right around and let it go right back into foreclosure. So go figure. But now in this particular case, GEM Services and Investments LLC on 24th Street in Los Angeles owns this property. It appears that it's a rental property or an income property, and they're renting it out to somebody and they aren't making the payments to the lenders. So it's interesting where this is going to go, because the question that I have is, why would someone buy a property and less than a year later be letting it go into default, unless for some reason they're not concerned about their credit rating. Okay, so now this is an LLC. Who knows what's behind it? But what we do know is we've got a situation where it appears there might be equity in this home, but not for long. Now, the reason I say that is we've got a $506,000 first with a $38,000 delinquency. It's going to be $40,000 by now because another month has gone by. So we're at about $546 on the first. And I know from the other record that the second is up to about $205, and the second appears to be a balloon loan. Okay, so basically what we've got is about $750,000 that's owed on a property that seems to be worth about $8. Okay, so this has a limited amount of equity if I pursue it as an offer subject to the existing loans. However, if I'm going to go in as a short sale offer, there's an opportunity that I can take advantage of by making an offer based on what I'm willing to spend. I have other options here too, don't I? Notice if I look down below, the owner of the first loan is a private individual. Okay, you don't see that very often, but that tells me I have an opportunity to try to buy the note, because obviously if it's a private individual, they might be willing to accept a cash payout rather than wait out the process of a foreclosure. That's one of the advantages that we have when we look at foreclosures as a way of acquiring real estate, is that maybe I have a chance to go to this private individual and say, hey, you know what? I realize you're owed about $540,000. Sounds to me like you're going to have to take this property all the way through foreclosure auction. What if I gave you $400,000 for your note today? Okay, now the person could say no, but they could say yes. You never know until you try. And that's the bottom line. Whenever we look at opportunities here, we have to ask ourselves, where does the opportunity lie? Okay, now is it possible I could buy the second note the same way? Yeah. Okay, never say never, but do the math. Okay, and that's what we always tell you, is make sure you do the math before you go after a second note. Make sure the math makes it possible to be able to buy that second note and come out at a profit. Otherwise, you could focus on the first, or let this process go, let it move ahead and see where it goes. Now, if the first takes it to auction, there should be an opportunity here to buy it at the auction. Now, if the second were to take it to auction while the first, which started their foreclosure, I'm going to go back, the first started their foreclosure after. This is important. That means that if I were to buy on the second at auction, or buy the property by bidding on the second at auction, then I might have a first that's getting ready to hold their auction too at about the same time that I buy it by bidding on the second loan. Okay, also in that time, what happens if this first winds up being owed a significant amount of money that's going up about $2,000 a month? Okay, that could get hazardous. I could be in a position where I bid on the second at auction and I wind up buying a property for market value where I have to come up with 100,000 or more to bring the first current just to keep it out of foreclosure myself. So whenever you're looking at an opportunity, remember, look at the numbers. If you're not sure how to look at the numbers, call us and let us review it with you. We'll guide you through the process. If we think it's a hazardous purchase, we'll tell you. If we don't think it's a problem, we'll give you the best advice we can. And if we say stay away from that one for now because maybe you want to let it go to auction first, there's probably a reason for it. Okay? And we'll tell you what that reason is. Remember, the key to learning is asking questions and listening to the answer. And let us give you that answer. You'll find that more often than not, you'll find a pearl of wisdom that you'd never seen before. Okay, now that's how we do a search just based on putting a street name into the system. All right, now I'm just going to get rid of that, and let's say that we looked at Matic and we decided what we were going to do. And again, never put down the idea of making an offer to the property owner. Just remember, in that case, I've got 2 loans that are less than a year old, and they might not be willing to accept a short sale offer. So keep that in mind. But if you can get one of them to sell the note at a discount, then that turns into something special. Now, I've got my LA South zone. I've got my notice as a default filed. And let's say that I was really interested in that property area in Downey. Okay, now we're going to take a look at using our polygon search. We don't often focus too much on this, but I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Now notice how I'm familiar with Downey. It's right here in between, it's boxed in between the 5, the 605, the 105, and the 710. So you've got this kind of odd shape here for Downey. Now, if I want to go ahead and put together a polygon search for Downey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start at this junction of the 710 and the 5 and just kind of follow the highway. Okay. Now notice I'm just kind of following the highway. Now I'm just left clicking here. Every time I move my cursor to a point, then I left click, then I'm connecting my dots. Okay. So notice this. You know, you don't have to be an artist. I'm just following the highway. Okay. You know, remember, it's my way or the highway. So I'm following the highway. Okay. How many times have you heard that? So I'm following the highway. And now I'm almost ready to connect these 2 ends, but it's kind of hard when you get right to the 2 ends. So I'm going to hit close polyshape, and I just created my polygon. Look at that. Look at that. Almost like I knew what I was doing. Okay. Now that's my Downey polygon. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and save that because I want to make sure I've got that saved. So I'm not going to change anything at this point. I'm just going to hit my save search option, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this my Downey NOD poly, and I'm going to call that my poly 1A, because I might have a polygon 1 I can't remember, and I don't want to go run back and check right now. So I'm going to call this my Downey NOD poly 1A, and I'm going to hit save. Okay. Now, if you've joined me on my Wednesday presentations, you know this is how I save a saved search. And so you'll notice that I can now go and I can select this, and now I'm in my polygon again, so it's like nothing's changed. Okay. But now I can do an NOD search of that polygon area. Now, whenever we come to the site, it's always going to say a listed date range. And again, that's our added date. That's when we post to the website. It's always going to be a 2-week range ending in today. But I've limited my search just to Downey, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to broaden this. I'm going to take my first date backwards, and I'm going to go back to the 4th of February. Okay, and I'm just doing this for me because I've decided that I'm going to do a polygon search this time, and I'm just going to search this whole area of Downey to see what I can see. Right, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit that. Now I was getting ready to hit search without polygon, right, because that's what I'm used to doing. But whenever we do a polygon search, we're going to hit this polygon search button right here. Now notice what happens. What does that look like? Kind of looks familiar, doesn't it? See my polygon? See my search results? Again, almost like I knew what I was doing. Now, I have my search results, and it's 0 to 20 of 21 records, so I know it's more than 20, so there's one record that's hiding from me. Okay, so I'm going to go down here under the map where it says show 20, 40, 60, because it's bigger than 20. I'm going to hit the 40. Okay, and there we go. Now I've got 0 to 40 of 21, so I've got 21 total records showing. So these are my notices of default. Okay, and I went backwards. So let's see if Matic, and there's my Matic record. Okay, so that's the most recent Matic record. This is the one that foreclosed on loan number 1. Okay, so these are my NOD reports. So now let's just say I'm targeting buying properties in this target area of Downey. Okay, so there's my report for notices of default. Now I'm going to go back, and again, using Google Chrome, notice my tab up on top that says County Records Research. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now specify I want upcoming trustee sales instead. Now, I can just go ahead and hit my Polygon search button, but before I do that, I'm gonna take advantage of this opportunity, and I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna save this one as a saved Polygon as well. So I'm gonna hit save this search. Okay, and notice it saved my Polygon again down here below. But notice it's trustee sales. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this my Downey NTS Poly. And remember what I said, 1A. Okay, because I know 1A. That's what this one is. Kind of got that weird shape. I want to say there's something funny about this this shape. It reminds me of something, and maybe it'll come to me. Maybe like a Santa hat. I don't know. There's something this reminds me of, but it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But now I'm going to hit search Polygon with upcoming sales selected. Now notice my report. Notice how it matches my Polygon, but now I've got 0 to 20 of 30 records. Gosh, Bob, why'd you do that? Because now I don't have just 21 properties to call upon. Now I have 51. Okay, because I've just added 30 more records. Now notice 0 to 20 of 30. So if I want to see all the records in one report, I'm going to hit my 40. Okay, and there they are. Okay, so now here's my default notice records. Here are my sale notice records. I've got 51 properties all in my prime target area that I can go after. Okay, so these are all properties in my prime target area that I can go after. And notice that I've got them all sorted out. Downey and South, there's Downey properties, there's Bell, there's Southgate. Now, if I want to limit this to just a certain number of properties, I can do that. But that also tells me something, doesn't it? That my Polygon also includes some other target areas, unless I did something wrong here. Let's try that again. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this. I'm going to make sure I hit search Polygon. Yep, I did. So there are aspects of other cities that have bled over past the freeways. So just for clarification, so we know that that's what happened here, but that's no big deal. Doesn't change my mind about these areas. It just means as I look at this, maybe I don't want this property that's in the city of Bell. Maybe my client that I'm searching for says, I want Downey. Well, Tom says maybe it's an elf hat, and this is where I'm going to point out to Tom, Santa is a jolly old, what? Elf. Yes, and if you haven't seen the movie Elf, we highly recommend it. Very funny movie. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit the 40 again, and there we've got 0 to 40 of 30 records. So now we've got what we have are our 51 properties that we can pick from. Now, I can sort by city, I can sort by zip code, I can sort by lot size, square footage, or I can sort by the amount owed to the lender, okay, or I can sort by estimated value. Okay, now with notices of default, I don't have an amount owed to the lender, do I? Okay, because it's blank. Okay, but with notices of sale, I do. Okay, now I can look at these and say, where do they fall on the map? Maybe I have a certain target area that I like. Okay, so here's one on Auto, here's one on Florence. Let's say that we're looking in this area. Now this is a section at the top of the Santa Hat that it's called North Downey. Okay, if anybody's familiar with Downey, North Downey is a pretty preferable location. So let's say that my client that I'm working with wants me to find something for him in this North Downey area. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this property on Auto Street. Okay, this is a 4,000 square foot home on a 10,000 square foot lot. So I'm going to guess this isn't the cheapest one on the list. Let's find out. Okay, so now I'm waiting for it to open. And as I'm waiting for it to open, remember that every time we open a profile, we were going to think in terms of a clean slate, just like that was a white screen that we were staring at a moment ago. Come at it as a clean slate. Come at it and say, all right, what if I'm looking at this property? How do I want to go about it? Well, the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what are we willing to spend? Okay, because people ask me, how much should I pay for this house, or what should I offer for this house? I cannot tell you how many times I have that question from someone that just begins our service. And the thing is, we define what we want to pay for something before we buy it. In fact, before I'm going to go buy a pair of shoes, I'm going to decide maybe I'll spend $100. Maybe I'm willing to spend $130 on that pair of shoes. I'm not going to buy a $500 pair of shoes. Okay. Similarly, when I look at a property like this, I'm going to tell myself I have a certain budget. Okay, whether we're going to take our kids shopping for school clothes, or whether we're going out and we're buying that gift for Aunt Edna, or whether we're in the process of picking out a car to send our daughter off to college. What are we doing? We're making a choice that we can afford. So when I put a price on a property, I'm doing it effectively so that I can determine my method. Now, here's this property on Auto Street, and we're looking at Zulma Mancia. So Zulma has a property. It looks like Zulma, I guess that's a lady. So let's say Zulma bought her house in 2000 here, July 6th of 2000. Now, what do we know about Zulma's property? First of all, she's got 3 loans here that we can see. She's got a first loan from 2004. That's a refinance loan. So Zulma refinanced the property in 04 and borrowed $665,000 on that first. Okay, now a couple of things I got to point out to you, because this is going to get ugly real quick. Okay, first of all, her loan for $665,000, she owes $897,990. Okay, on that very first loan. So 665 has grown to 897. Okay, but she's got a second and a third loan. Now our total down here is 900,000, but that 900,000 is assuming 665 is the first. So we know that number has grown by $230,000. So she owes 1.1 and change. Okay, it's a Friday afternoon, so my math's not so hot. Okay, but we know that she owes more than we're willing to spend, because the market value of this place is about $1 million. Okay, so this is about $1 million market value, and what we're looking at is a $900,000 first. The second was 145. Do you think it's just 145 today? Wow, I got to say, you know what? This one begs me to use my single property search with a specific parcel number in mind, okay? Because first of all, I've got to set a challenge for myself. So I'm going to do one thing. Before I do that, I'm going to hit my Zillow link. This is our magic Zillow link. And Zillow says, okay, it's set for auction. So now auction.com has this property set to go to auction with an opening bid of $580. Okay, so we know that is one aspect of this. It's not why I was going here. I wanted to see if there was any history here of this property having been listed. Now, the only listings to sell the property are auction.com. These are all advertisements for the auction for the foreclosure. That's what auction.com does. So no, I was just checking to see, is it listed with an agent? Because if it's listed with an agent, then I can pursue buying it from the agent. Now I'm going to check the Zillow's estimate. Now Zillow's estimate is $1,076,000, very close to our report. Okay, very, very close. So let's just say two comps from two separate sources say this place is worth about $1,070,000. Okay, so let's say that's the most I could sell this property for. Well, I know they owe $900,000 on the very first loan. So am I going to pursue this as a short sale? I could. Now, I can't make a subject to offer, can I? It looks to me, if they owe $900,000 on the first, they owe about 1.3, I'm guessing. Okay. And I'm not going to get to the price point I want unless I either buy it at the auction or I get it as a short sale. Now, it is set to go to auction on the 17th. That's 2 weeks from now. Opening bid is $580. Okay, so now I might decide to position myself to buy this house at the auction because Zulma has really driven the banks nuts because she hasn't made payments in a long time. So this loan has probably been in default more than once. So let's again, we saw our magic Zillow button. So now let's use our parcel number. Now I just left clicked and I drew, and I'm going to copy. Now notice I'm in Google Chrome, so I've got my different tabs open. I'm going to go to my main screen tab, and we're going to go up here and we're going to drop this parcel number that we copied from the profile in the single property search window. And let's see what happens when we do a single property search based on parcel number. And that's kind of what I anticipated I was going to see, because Zulma doesn't like to pay her lenders. Now, what we see here is that Zulma's had multiple records in our system. This is the beauty of having an archive. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 records on Zulma's property. So this is kind of like if you've ever opened up one of your old checkbook registers, you can kind of take a trip down memory lane. We're taking a trip down the memory lane for her lender. Okay, so her lender started their notice of default process, looks like back in 2009. This is the very first document. So I'm just waiting for that to open. So we're going to see her very first notice of default. We want to see when her payment stopped. Now, while that's loading, notice these are all loan position 1. Okay, this has been her loan from 2004 that started the process of foreclosure in June of 2009. So Zulma is very good at what she does. Okay, she's managed to live in a property for 7 years without making a payment. Okay, you know, you can say anything else you like about this lady, but we can say she's got a talent. She's got a talent, and she's been able to stay in this property and not make a payment. Now, the junior lien holders have never filed foreclosure. So don't know why, but we know they haven't. Now, in this particular case, we see that the $665,000 first, which was, again, refinance loan, they were $18,000 in arrears as of June of 2009. So if we assume that her payments on that are about $4 or $5 grand, then we can assume that she was roughly about 3 months or so behind at that point. The lender started a foreclosure, and who is this? This is Chase Bank. Okay, so Chase started this process way back in June of 2009. Okay, going back to my list again, these are all the foreclosing first. So notice these notices of default, 09, 2012, 2013. So the lender started the process, and then for some reason they gave her a break, probably because they needed to offer her a modification. If they're a primary lender like Chase, they're the big kid on the block. If they're the primary lender, then the bottom line is they're gonna probably need to offer some form of modification. And we don't know what else she's used in terms of her methodology. We do know that she's been able to buy herself time. Now, notice here that she owed $743 in 2009 when the sale notice was first issued in the first round of the foreclosure. That amount went down, so it looks like she actually started making payments again. But then notice it jumped up to $853,000 in 2014, and it has been steadily climbing. Okay, so we simply know that she hasn't made payments in a very, very long time. And we can say officially that that probably started back in 2009, and it's been continuing until now. Now, what does that tell us of the status of the situation? It tells us the lender's pretty much had enough. Okay, so I've done my single property search. I'm going to go back to the main screen. I'm going to get rid of this single search result. And we know our situation. We know the second and the third have never foreclosed. We know this particular property is set to go to auction on the 17th. I know if I go to make an offer as a short sale that the second and third have never issued foreclosures, I might be able to get a short sale approved. Okay, it doesn't hurt to try. Now, if I go to the property and I talk to Zulma and she's willing to accept my offer, maybe I put an offer on the table for $800,000. Okay, because we know regardless that we're going to offer less than what she owes, because she owes more than the property's worth. I can tell you that right now. We're going to offer less than what she owes. If I have the cash or if I have the funding, I'm going to make a short sale offer on this property to Zulma today. Because if I can buy it for $800,000 and turn around and flip it for $9 million, I'm happy. Okay, if I could sell it for $1 million, I'm ecstatic. Okay, but if I can buy it for $8 million and sell it for $9 million, I think that's a heck of a good job. Okay, now if I approach her and make the offer and she accepts the offer, then I'm in good shape. And if I get my escrow closed and then I take the property over, I might be able to remarket the property immediately in an as-is condition. Okay, now again, we're looking at the property just to see what it looks like. It's a nice looking house. That's a nice looking house. I'd say that's $1 million home. In North Downey, that's probably $1 million home. Okay, so this is an opportunity. Either I'm going to buy it directly from Zulma because she's got the pressure of knowing that the lender's got an auction scheduled, or I'm going to wait for the auction and be ready to buy it there. Either way, I'm going to have a price point set. If that maximum price is $800, it's $800. If it's $700, it's $700. Okay, don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about anybody's concerns. Worry about your price point and your offer, or if you have the cash available, be ready to bid it at the auction. Now, if I want to keep up to date on this particular property, those of you who've been with me before, you know this one. I'm going to put my my email address in here. Oops, helps if I spell it right. There we go. So Bob at countyrecordsresearch.com, that's me. I'm going to hit my submit, and there it is. Now I'm in like Flint, so to speak. Okay, so now I've just gone ahead and saved that, so that I'll be notified of anything that comes up in the future. I'm not going to go ahead and save that. You've seen that from my Wednesdays, so I've just got it set up so I'm going to get notified of any change in the status, and that's all I really care about with this particular property. Now, if I close this one out, I'm right back at my search results. Now remember, I started with my notices of sale. Why am I doing that? A, it's a larger quantity. B, I can see what they owe. It gives me a real clear picture of what they owe. So now that was the property on auto. Now notice here's one over on Florence. This is a condo. Okay, now notice that the lot size, it says 72,503 square feet. Remember what I said earlier. When it's a condo, it's either going to give us a lot size of 0, or it's going to give us the lot size of the whole complex. In this case, it's giving us the lot size of the whole complex. So this is on Florence Avenue, Unit 15. If I was looking for a condo, I'd pull that one up. What's this one over here? This is on Haledon. Okay, so now this is a 1,900 square foot home on a 10,000 square foot lot. Now, what if my budget is a little smaller than $1 million, because remember, Zulma's house was $1 million home. Let's look at Haledon. Maybe this one's a little bit more in my budget. Maybe Haledon maybe that property was a little too rich for me. Now here's an interesting one. This is Edward Sandoval. So it looks like Edward and Sandoval and Zulma are not only neighbors, they're birds of a feather, because his $676,000 loan, he now owes over $1 million. So it looks like they went to the same school of don't make the payment to the bank. So now he's had the property since 2005, and he took out this refinance loan in 2007. So again, this is a refi loan. It's not a purchase loan. And Edward stopped making payments not long after he borrowed the money, because this thing has gone up by about $350,000. Okay, so again, this is somebody who hasn't made a payment in a very long time. Let's take a look at his house. Now, it's worth about $600,000. Remember I said the reason I'm opening up the house on Haledon is because I think it's worth less than $1 million. I think it's more in my budget if I'm looking for a house I can buy for $5 million. And this is important. If I've got $500 in cash to spend, don't look at $1 million homes. You know, you're spinning your wheels. You're going to get a deal, but you're not going to get that good a deal most of the time. There are exceptions. There are exceptions, but let's focus on the low-hanging fruit. Let's focus on something within reach, okay? If I assume I'm going to buy $1 million house, then I assume I'm going to pay somewhere in the range of about $700,000 to $800,000, and I'm going to feel darn good about that, okay? But if I'm going to buy a $600,000 house, that's something that I can buy for about $5 million. So let's say I'm looking to spend, you know, about half of the budget that I would have to buy Zulma's property, and I'm still in the same neighborhood. So let's take a look at this property on Haledon. I'm going to hit my bird's eye option. Okay, this is interesting. That's kind of a different look, isn't it? Now, this is part of the fun of shopping foreclosures, because you look at a property and you say, what the heck? How's that? What? Okay, so it looks like they've got some kind of a patio here in the back. Kind of an interesting look, isn't it? Look at that shape. That's like an architectural, there's something different about that. So but this is an interesting home. Notice he's kind of got the barn-shaped garage. Okay, this is an interesting looking home. Now, I'm wondering, did Edward, what do we got going on? Has Edward listed the house? Because what do we always want to do? We want to see the property, right? Oh, look what we just found. Pending. And what did I say? I want to buy a house for about $5 million. Pending at $415. Why do I check Zillow? Because guess what? Maybe someone beat me to the punch, didn't they? See how easy? When you look at this, think about this. Somebody went and did what I keep telling you guys to do. This is why I keep saying this. Go make an offer. Don't be shy. Be aggressive and go out there and make an offer. Now, look at this. This property is listed for sale. They listed it at $415 with a realtor. My goodness. My goodness. So here's the deal. This was listed in June of 2015 with the realtor. So our homeowner, he knows what's up. Remember what, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, why don't these people just sell their house? Well, some people do. And the thing is, if we sit on our heels, if we sit there and say, well, I don't know, people, if they wanted to sell their house, they already would have. Well, look at this. They listed their house in June, and pending sale since November. Okay, what does that tell you? Why does it still say pending? Okay, why does it still say pending? Because maybe somebody's not clearing escrow. So what else does that tell you? Go in and make a backup offer. Go make that offer. Maybe the lender's hedging on $415 because that's low. Okay, it's a pretty house from the street, isn't it? Okay, now I got to tell you, from this overhead shot, I'm not sure what's going on back here. Okay, but I do know that it's pending escrow, and there's a realtor involved. And what if it's in escrow and they're having trouble getting their funding approved? And that's why we have a lender with an auction. Oh my goodness, that's next Wednesday. That's next Wednesday. I would say someone needs to talk to the realtor. Let me go back to Zillow, because we have a lead, don't we? Don't everybody knock each other over getting a hold of Priority One Real Estate. Okay, but you should go fight it out. You know, if Tom and Nova, or if you're both like, you know, elbow to elbow there, you know, fight it out. Draw cards. You know, cut your cards and see who can go in first. Make your offer. Okay, because if they're in there at 415, go in with a backup offer. Offer 420, and go in with cash, or go in with funding. But be aware that if this has been pending since November, something is holding up the process. Remember, you have a realtor and a homeowner that set that price. The lender didn't set that price. The lender's owed $1 million. Okay? The lender was owed $1 million. Whoa, hold the phone. The lender was owed $1 million a year ago. Okay, so let's say that these payments are $4,000 a month. Okay, they're owed over $1,050,000. Okay, so what's the lender saying to 415? I don't think so. Now, if the lender was still considering that 415, guess what? They couldn't have this auction. What does that tell me? It tells me it's fallen out of escrow. It's just the light bulb just came on. This realtor needs an offer in their hand to prevent this auction from happening next Wednesday. The ball is in your court, okay? Go and make that offer, because now this place might have some issues, okay? Looking at it, I don't know what's going on in that backyard. I'd want to know, okay? I'd want to check that out, but it looks like you've got a drive-through garage. It looks like this guy's probably got, he probably has a construction business. He might have built his own patio there. It might be nice, it might be funny. Okay, I don't know what's going on with that. What I do know is this: you've got $1 million home, you got a $660,000 home where he owes $1,050,000, and he's just fallen out of escrow. He's got an auction set for next week, and I need to name my price. I need to go and I need to impress upon the lender through the process of the escrow that I can close this. Okay, I need to get that escrow reopened in my name, because if it was still in escrow under the previous buyer's name, then they wouldn't have a sale pending, because the lender can't be considering a short sale and at the same time holding an auction. You can't do that anymore. Okay, so even though Zillow is not stating it, this property is no longer in escrow. Okay, so this is an invitation. This is an engraved invitation to go after this property and make an offer. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one. Okay, I'm going to save this one. I'm going to save this to Bob's Houses, because, you know, maybe I want that barn for myself, you know. I'm going to save it to Bob's Houses. And now I've saved that property record, okay? Now, I can go right back to my search results. We just looked at that property. Wonder if there's any other ones that are in the same neck of the woods, okay? Now, I really like this area here of North Downey, and I've kind of exhausted my options with my sale notices, so I'm going to close that record out. Let's see if there's any here that I can look at, and here's one. Oh, there we go. Back to Maddock Avenue. Okay, forget that one. I'm going to forget Maddock, but I'm going to look at this one over here. Okay, here's one on Gaybrook. You know what that is? That's a Happy River. Okay, no laughter, but okay. So we're going to hit Gaybrook and take a look at this one. and see what we can see. Now, here's a different situation. This property on Gaybrook, what's different about this one? Well, first of all, it's on the other side of Florence, okay? If you're not familiar with the area, this is very, very well-known area. Actually, I have my sister lives over here off of Little Lake Road. Okay, so I'm very familiar with this part of Downey. So this particular property was just purchased in June of 2014. So about 2 years ago, this property was purchased. We have a purchase loan. Okay, so this Frederick and Sutita, okay, bought this property, and it looks like they just have one loan. And there's a lot of equity here. Now, notice on those last two properties, we needed to take, well, oh, thank you, Tom. Okay, on those last two properties, we needed to take an amount of debt that was greater than what we were willing to spend and knock that down. Okay, now we have a different situation. Now we have what looks like a property that has equity in it. So now I could approach Frederick and Sutita. Okay, I'm probably butchering that name, or Sutilda. Yeah, okay, what a name. Okay, so let's just say Fred and Sut. And so Fred and Sut, they have a house that's worth about $623, very similar to the other property with the barn garage. But they seem to only owe about $300,000. $275 is the loan from 2014, brand new loan, 2 years old. We know that that hasn't been paid down much. It's $275 plus $23,000. We're looking at roughly $300K. So they owe about half the market value of their home. A couple of points. This is a year and a half old loan. And Alan Brooks, it's an individual. This is a note purchase. Oh, well, thank you, Nova. This is a opportunity to buy a note from Alan. Okay, all right, and this is an opportunity to go make an offer to Frederick and Sutilda. Wow, how do people name their kids like that? Okay, so this is a nice house. Now notice you've got a nice view of the river. Not bad. Could be worse. You could have a noisy neighbor back there. So now, nice ranch style home with a swimming pool. And what we got here, we've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 7,881 square feet, and $1,900. So bottom line is this, or 1,900 square feet. Okay, thank God it's Friday. Okay, so what we've got is a nice size home in a quiet neighborhood on a cul-de-sac. This is not bad. This is not bad. And you know you're never going to have neighbors over here. Okay. You also know they owe about half of market value. So here's another opportunity. You see how easily these opportunities rear their heads, and we see an opportunity to see something that we haven't seen before. So here's another property that I can make an offer, or if I had to, I could wait for the auction. I don't think this one's going to make it to the auction. Let's see if they've got it listed for sale. Okay, doesn't appear so. Okay, and again, I'm just checking to see. Okay, no. So, and look at this. This property went to auction before. Yet again, another property that went through foreclosure before, got sold through the foreclosure, became purchased by somebody else, and now they're in foreclosure. Bummer, but you know, circle of life. Okay, this property needs to get into somebody else's hands because these folks are falling behind. Now they could try and refinance. Good luck, they're in foreclosure. That's difficult. Okay, lenders have to know you can pay before they can finance you now. So I doubt that they'll be able to refi this property. No, this one needs to change hands. This one has equity. I could try buying the note. I could try to go into the homeowner. If this winds up going to auction, it'll be a bargain there too. So this has been our Friday webinar, giving you an idea of how to look for a deal. We chose to look at Downey, specifically North Downey, and we found some great opportunities. We're glad you were able to join us again today, and we're going to be back in the office again next week, Wednesday and Friday. Please step in and join us for another opportunity to learn a few things we didn't know yesterday. This has been Bob at County Records Research. Thanks a lot and have a great weekend.